Hi, is this Eddie?
Yeah.
Hi,
Who's
Eddie.
this?
This is Pete from Suburban Rebels magazine.
Oh yeah. How you doing?
I'm all right. Is it a good time to talk? You got some time?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Well, this is another Suburban Rebels broadcast, and today's is with Eddie Joseph, aka Eddie Subtitle of Eddie and the Subtitles. You're a legendary person in music, and I'm honored to do this, man. What was life growing up for you in Reno, Nevada, and yeah, how did that start out?
Yeah, Reno is it was a pretty good place to grow up. There was a lot of my friends were really into music. It just seemed like everybody I know had older brothers and sisters, so they were all into rock and roll music in the 50s, and we weren't quite teenagers yet, so we heard a lot of that stuff, just being played at our houses, and so we kind of grew up, liking rock and roll music.
Yeah. And then you moved to San Francisco, right, in '65?
Yeah, San Francisco was kind of like the place to go for us kids in Reno. We would go there on the weekend and go to the Fillmore or Winterland to see live performances, and then me and a friend of mine finally just moved there. Right, it was kind of like right after I graduated from high school. It was like '67. We actually moved there, the summer of love.
Yeah. And when did you start listening out to folk bands? Was that your first music introduction, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of, I grew up in a household that was just had a lot of music. My dad liked classical music. My mom liked pop music like Patti Page and Lena Horne. I had a sister who was 10 years older than me, and she liked Elvis and the Everly Brothers. And my brother was 11 years older than me, and he liked, like the Ink Spots and John Lee Hooker. He kind of liked, offbeat music. And so by the time I got to buy my own music when I was about 10 or 11, I started buying like surfing instrumentals and then the whole Beach Boy thing and as well as folk music.
Okay. And were you so you started writing music, like folk music, and were you dropping LSD and stuff during that time?
Yeah, I was I was kind of lucky in a way. My brother, who was 11 years older, he was an anthropologist and ended up teaching at Cal State Fullerton, and he was kind of I don't know, beatnik / hippie, and so he turned me on to pot when I was maybe 12 or 13. And I took LSD when I was like 15. So, in fact, I remember my parents they had me go up to where my sister lived in Yakima, Washington, just so I could clean up and get off drugs. And it was unique because not too many people in Reno were into that early. But then by '67, everybody was taking drugs.
You think it inspired you to write music? LSD?
I don't know. I started to write songs when I was about 13, and I think I just wanted to write songs. I mean, I don't know if taking drugs really inspired that. I think just listening to other music was the biggest inspiration, but I don't really know if the drug usage was an inspiration.
Okay. And how did you fall into punk rock, like the Sex Pistols, right?
Yeah, well, I moved to Los Angeles I don't know, right around in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing. Me and this friend of mine were playing. We wrote songs and we played like at the Ice House, and they had bands like the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo, which became Oingo Boingo,
Mm-hmm.
and we finally put a band together called the Rockets, and we were playing with another one of those bands called the Roto Rooter Good Time Christmas Band, which would change their name to Roto, and then we John Blair of John and the Night Riders told us that there was a million bands called the Rockets in the 50s, so we should change the name to Eddie and something. So we settled on Eddie and the Subtitles, and this was really like before punk rock happened, and we were kind of like a rockabilly, and we played surfing instrumentals, and then when punk rock happened, we changed to being a punk band.
Oh, okay. So, what bands inspired you? Like, I know X and the Screamers, right?
Oh yeah. Well, when punk rock happened, Rodney Bingenheimer at KROQ he was playing everything, and I think let's see, the first punk show I went to was X and the Alley Cats, the Avengers and the Dills, and I thought, wow, this is really pretty cool. And yeah, I went to see everybody. I saw the Screamers, and they were great, and the Germs and the Bags and all that early, the Weirdos, all the early punk rock was very inspirational because they were all really good bands.
Yeah, for sure. And that was at the Mask, or?
It's weird. I never went to the Mask. I was asked to play there, and we were thinking about it, and then it closed. So I didn't really start to play anywhere consistently until Randy Stadala of the Alley Cats and I we talked the owner of the Club 88, which was a bar in Santa Monica, into having shows on the weekend, and so we started to play shows there with X and the Plugs and the Alley Cats, and that kind of turned into the punk rock club. And then the owner, Wayne, kind of got sick of punk rock damage, and then we moved over to the Hong Kong Cafe, which was in Chinatown, and we had a lot of shows there. So I never played the Mask. I knew Brendan Mullins really well, and Geza, of course, but I never actually played there or even went there for that matter.
Oh, okay. Interesting. What inspired you to write American Society?
That's a good question. Well, the first version of that was the fast version, and I recorded that over at Randy Stadala of the Alley Cats. He had a little studio at his house, and I'm not sure exactly what the inspiration was. I was just trying to write, some punk rock stuff, and I remember Randy really liked it. He said, "That's a good song," and then we were just kind of screwing around when we recorded it, and decided to do a slow version of it, just for fun, and we when we put out the single, we gave Rodney a test pressing, and it had Louie Louie and American Society, and he was playing Louie Louie, and it was like he was playing it like every time he had a show. And Tony of the Adolescents called him up and said, "Rodney, you're playing the wrong side of that record." And he goes, "What do you mean? I'm playing Louie Louie, and it's a big hit, And Tony finally said, well, just turn it over and play the other side just once for me." So he turned it over and played the slow version of American Society, and it soon became the most requested record on Rodney's show.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. And you just, you started the riff fast, you said, but what made you think of the riff? Did you just do it on the fly, or was it surf guitar?
Yeah, it was just on the fly. I mean, it was just, it was fast, and, typical, E, G, D, A, or whatever it is. And I remember Randy of the Alley Cat said, "Hey, that's pretty good. That's a cool little riff." And so I just it just sort of stuck. He was the influence. We'll blame it on him.
And so when you put it on Skeletons in the Closet, it was actually sped up, right? Or that was the original version, I guess.
Well, yeah, the original version I did at Randy's, and so then we recorded it in Fullerton, and then we recorded the fast version and the slow version. The slow version was just kind of as a joke, but we liked it, and we thought, oh, this is kind of cool. So we recorded all the punk rock stuff on that album at Casbah Studios in Fullerton, and then the new wave rockabilly stuff I recorded with Geza in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. And what were you guys doing a lot of speed back then?
Yes. In fact, I was just down in LA recently, and this guy made a documentary of Eddie and the Subtitles, and we went out and had dinner with Geza, and we were talking about how we used to just drink and take speed all the time and smoke pot, and now we don't do anything. It was kind of weird because we're all just like cleaned up, and we don't take drugs and we don't drink, and it was like we were both saying, God, I can't believe we're still alive. Because a lot of people we knew just didn't make it very far.
Right. And that album had like a rockabilly influence. Did that come from just what you were listening to and growing up?
Yeah, it did. And I had a chance. Geza put a band together called Geza X and the Mommy Men. And the bass player of that band was Bobby Payne. And he had another band called the Paynes. And they were kind of country rockabilly stuff. And so I recorded some rockabilly with Bobby and Don Heffington, who was the drummer of Lone Justice, and they were really popular at the time. And in LA, they were like a country band, and a lot of like country celebrities, Tanya Tucker, and Dolly Parton, and all these people really liked Lone Justice. So I was lucky to work with Don, and so we just recorded some rockabilly just for fun. We had access to the studio, and we decided just to put it all on that album.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And what about the cover, the Fuck You Eddie cover? What was that all about?
Yeah, we played in San Diego a lot, and San Diego had a really good punk rock scene. And when we played down there, we had a fan called Sean Carey, and her job, she drew cartoons for Hustler magazine. And we thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. And so we asked her to do the cover of both the single and the album, and then she ended up doing a bunch of stuff. She worked with the Circle Jerks and some other people, and that worked out pretty good. She was a good artist.
Right. Okay. And what were early Eddie and the Subtitles shows like?
Well, when we were a rockabilly band, they were just kind of, there was enough people there to make gas money, right? Yeah. And then when we changed into a punk rock band, that was completely different because we played with X, and we both had the same lawyer, Jay Jenkins, and X drew a really big and raucous punk rock crowd, and so when we changed into a punk rock crowd or to a punk rock band, it was kind of like a deliberate move because they were just getting bigger crowds, and they were pretty wild crowds, but it was all good fun. And so those shows were kind of they were pretty cool. And then when we started playing in San Diego, the San Diego crowd was really radical, and they stopped having punk rock shows in San Diego, so all these guys came up to LA to see us, and they were nuts. I mean, they were like, you guys think you guys are punk rockers, we're just as cool as you are, and they just went completely mad, which was cool. And we've also played in Riverside, and a lot of people from Riverside came to our shows, and all of a sudden, like, one of the complaints was that, punk rock shows have the same bands, the same people. And then all of a sudden, like, we had all this big crowd from San Diego and Riverside that nobody even had seen before. And it was like, wow, this is weird. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. What do you think the wildest show was, or the wildest club to play?
God, I remember playing a show at the Starwood, and it was kind of weird because Black Flag wanted to play at the Starwood, but the promoter there wouldn't hire him because of all the trouble they were causing. And I went to the guy and I said, "Hey, Eddie and the Subtitles have a show coming up. Is it okay if Black Flag plays on our bill?" And he kind of went, "Okay, it's your show, right? You want them to play?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay." And I asked him, "Is it okay if they get the band for opening up for them?" And he said, "Okay." And they got the Minutemen, which had never played a live show. They played at parties, but they hadn't actually played in the club. And the Black Flag crowd was really raucous, but they kind of didn't really like any other bands. They were just kind of into Black Flag. And then when we played, they saw that people were just slam dancing in the entire, club, and they said, "Oh, this is pretty good," and they just popped in, and it was pretty wild. It was nuts.
Yeah, man. And what was the Hollywood scene like for you?
Well, it was kind of weird because at first, we played with X a lot, and it was kind of like, why are you playing with a band from Orange County? People in Hollywood hated Orange County, probably for good reason. And then, but after a while, they kind of warmed up to us, and especially when we started to play with. Geza was a fan, and Paul Rosler of the Screamers was a big fan, and we played with like the Germs, and we played with Wall of Voodoo and the Mau Maus and the Bags, and these are all like fixtures in the Hollywood scene. So we finally won them over eventually, but at first it was kind of like they're an Orange County band, and people didn't like anything from Orange County, but they warmed up eventually because of the Adolescents and Social Distortion and TSOL and some of the other bands that came from Orange County. They finally like realized that, hey, this is better than we thought it was going to be.
Okay. I saw Rick last night. Rick Agnew.
Oh, where did you see him?
Christian Death played up here.
Where is up here?
I'm up in Northern California in the East Bay. They played a club called the Ivy Room in Albany by El Cerrito.
Oh, okay. That's funny because was it the Radolescents or was it DI?
It was Christian Death.
Christian Death, yeah.
And then Baton, yeah.
Yeah, we got a show coming up with DI, and I think Rick Agnew's still in DI.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing in Reno, and
oh wow.
Yeah, that'll be good. That's coming up late June, and
cool.
That should be cool.
Who was the worst band you think you shared a bill with?
The worst band? Oh, wow. Oh, God, let me think. That's a good one. Wow, I don't know. That's kind of a hard one to pin down because most of the bands we played with were really good.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. I remember seeing what's the gal's name? Frank of Nervous Gender.
Yeah.
And they were really, really out there. what kind of thing is this? It's like it wasn't even music. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
But it was funny in a weird way. I mean, it was art. So I don't know.
Yeah. Did you have any rivalries with any bands in LA or?
Not really. I think that one of the things that was good about the LA scene is everybody kind of, they were all, pretty much in it together, and all the bands were really reciprocal. Like, if you got Black Flag a gig, they'd get you a gig. They would waste no time in reciprocating. So that was pretty much every band was like that. If you got somebody a show, they'd turn around and try to get you a show.
Yeah. And what kind of instruments did you bring in on Skeletons in the Closet? I think I heard some like organs and stuff.
Yeah, there's I don't know. I played like a Gibson SG, but boy, instruments, that's a good one. I think Geza played some funny stuff on it, and Nikki Beats on it. I'm not too good with the instrumentation. I remember Paul Rosler was in Germany at the time, and he came back and he was really pissed off that he wasn't on that album. He goes, "You should have waited for me," but that was funny.
Yeah. You guys covered the Animals. Did you ever meet Eric Burdon?
I never met him, but I've seen him a couple of times. They kind of have gone through Reno, and they played up at Lake Tahoe a couple of times. So I never actually met him, but I had this close friend of mine. He went up to Eric Burdon after a show and had him. He wanted him to autograph his Animal album, right? Mm-hmm. And he just kind of said, "Hey Eric, what do you think of Alan Price? The keyboard player that quit." And he got really pissed off. He goes, "That fucker, man, I hate that fucker." And it was funny.
Band rivalry.
Yeah, within the same band, it was funny.
What was the worst show you ever played?
Oh God, I don't know. We actually played a lot of really good shows. Boy, I don't know. That's a good question. Punk rock was really just blowing up when Eddie and the Subtitles were, switched to a punk rock band, and just every show was a good show. I remember one time we played a show. It was a benefit for the Communist Party. This was great, and we played with Middle Class, and I think there was another band that played. I can't remember who it was. It might have been DI. I don't know, but after it was done, I got all the money and I took off. It was so funny, and then I paid the band, the bands that played, and they were going, that communist, those guys were looking for you. I said, well, good luck. They wanted their benefit money, and we just decided, fuck them.
Jesus, so good. So I heard, I don't know if it's a rumor, but that you took some kind of money from like Frontier Records or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a total bullshit story. What happened was that Lisa Francher of Frontier Records gave Mike Patton, the guy in the Middle Class, a what are they called? A money order.
Right.
And it was supposed to go for the adolescents if they needed any equipment update. And at least that's the story I heard. And what happened was, and this is what I think happened, Mike Patton just cashed it and then told Lisa Francher, I gave it to Eddie, and he must have just pocketed the money. But I never got a money order. And what was so weird about that is that Eddie and the Subtitles had broken up at that point, and I wasn't managing anybody. I wasn't the Adolescents manager at that point. So why Lisa Francher would give me money to buy the Adolescents equipment was kind of weird. I mean, you would think that she would have given that to the adolescents because they're the ones that know what kind of equipment they need.
Right.
But it got to where Lisa Franchier accused me of stealing the money, and it was just so weird because it was a money order. And but I think she has since realized that didn't happen because what happened, this was like last year, Netflix in France put out a movie and they used L7's version of American Society. And since I was the writer, Lisa sent me a check for like $7,000 for being the writer. So I don't think there's any more hard feelings with her.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. Wow, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I was stunned. I go, wow. I never got any money from L7, but oh well.
Yeah. Well, actually, what do you think about that when you heard L7 cover that song? Did you give them permission or?
Nope, I didn't even. I kind of knew vaguely. Oh God, what the hell's her name? One of the members.
Danita?
No.
Oh.
God, I can't remember her name. She was in another. I think she was in the Castration Squad.
Oh. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but anyway, I just kind of thought, well, they weren't a very popular band at the time, so I just thought, oh well. I was actually thrilled that the Mexican band did I Don't Want to Live in a Mexican Society. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Hispanic. I thought that was hysterical. But no, I didn't give them permission or get any money, but I thought it was funny. It's funny you asked that because Rhino put out, and I just heard this like a few weeks ago, a CD with Louie on it, and Eddie and Subtitles is on that, and I never got permission or money from them, so I'm thinking about calling them up and saying, hey, you guys, not that they made any money.
You can actually technically sue, right?
Yeah, I could, but what am I going to get out of that? I probably have to pay more for a lawyer than I would get.
Right. And how does it feel to shape the sound of Southern California punk rock with that song?
How did it feel to what?
To shape the sound of like Southern California punk rock. I think that song kind of encompasses like the feel,
Which song is that?
American Society.
It was funny. I just did an interview with these two guys that are writing a book about Southern California music, and they said everybody we talk to always says, you got to talk to Eddie because he's really the archetype of what was going. And no, I was just another guy in another band, and as far as like shaping the sound of punk rock, I mean, I'd have to go maybe with the Germs, if anybody,
Yeah.
Or, I just had no, I had no intent of doing that. I mean, I'm sure there must have been somebody that was influenced by the Subs at some point in time, but I just did what I did, and if somebody took something from it, good for them, but it certainly wasn't intentional.
Okay. Are there really no versions in Hollywood?
Yeah, I've heard that rumor. That's funny. We just I just played that song. We played last week in Reno at a bar downtown, the Alturas, and it was just jammed. I couldn't believe how many people showed up. We played with a band called Pussy Velour. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're becoming the most popular band in Reno. They're really crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great show, and we played no versions in Hollywood. Oh boy, that's funny.
Did you ever play with 7 Seconds? Because I know they're from Reno.
No, there's a weird story about that. just very early on in the punk scene, I was talking to Greg Ginn of Black Flag, and he said, Eddie, there's this band in Reno, and they really like you. They're called 7 Seconds. And I said, there's a punk band in Reno, Nevada? He goes, yeah, they're really good. But no, it was funny. We played. They have this thing in Reno called the Punk Rock Flea Market. It kind of happens like twice a year, and we usually play it. And I met, I think his name is Steven Seconds, and he is kind of the part-time bass player in it. And he wanted to set up a show with 7 Seconds and us in Reno, Sacramento, and San Francisco. And I said, oh, that's great. The next thing I heard was he was in rehab, and he couldn't even finish the 7 Seconds tour. They were on tour with the Circle Jerks, and so those shows never happened, and I was kind of disappointed. The people in the band I'm in, the two girls are in another band called The Shames, and they played with 7 Seconds. They know them really well.
Oh, okay. So maybe it'll happen one day.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I just I like their album. I mean, I like their music. So it'll happen sooner or later.
And how was being the manager of the Detours and Adolescents?
Actually, I didn't manage the Detours, but I did manage the Adolescents, Social Distortion, Middle Class, and Eddie and the Subtitles all at the same time. And it was really easy because those were bands that, they were people wanted to book them, and whenever somebody wanted to book one of those bands, I just call up the band and say, hey, I got this show. Do you want to do it? And it was always up to the band if they wanted to do it or not. And the Adolescents wanted to play everywhere, and Middle Class didn't want to play anywhere. So it was kind of like, I better ask these guys first. So it was pretty funny. And then the Germs manager quit, and I got to book the Germs for a while, and I got them. Yeah, that was great. I got them a show. This guy called me up and wanted to book the Germs, and I said, okay, their price is like $5,000. And he said, oh boy, I better get back to you on that. So he called back and he goes, okay. And so I told the Germs, and they just went, what? And they said, Eddie, you're the best manager of all time. That was funny.
Darby?
Oh, he was great. I loved Darby. He was, we were friends. They'd go down to San Diego and play, and I'd go down there with them, and we'd go and have pizza. And he was really a good guy, super cool.
Yeah. And what about Mike Ness? You got any Mike Ness stories?
Mike Ness is funny because we played down at Anaheim, and I was talking to some people that I knew back in the day, and I said, hey, do you ever see Mike Ness? And it was kind of like, no, he's got, he's a rock star now, and he doesn't hang out with anybody. And I thought, oh man, that's too bad, because it was like, oh well, and I kind of noticed he, Social Distortion has played in Reno a couple times, but they never play with any of the old bands. They usually have somebody that I've never heard of opening in their show.
Do you think Middle Class brought in their sound when they joined the Subtitles?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, the drummer was fast, and Mike Patton, he kind of had to slow down a little bit because he was used to playing everything really fast. So they it was kind of funny because they had to kind of relearn how to play, just normal speed. It was funny because Mike Patton had appendicitis one time, and they had a show at the Hong Kong Cafe, and they got Rob, the bass player of the Bags, who was just fantastic. And he said, okay, I'll do this show on one condition. You guys slow everything down to like a normal speed. And so they said, okay. And so they played the show, and they were so good. God, it's just, they sounded like $1 million. I mean, they just played, like normal speed. And Rob is just a terrific bass player. And it was a great show.
Oh, cool. And then is it true that you stared down some cops or something at some last San Diego show with Angry Samoan?
Yeah, that was so weird because we played at the Lions Club, which was a pretty big hall, and we'd played there before a few times, and we had a really good crowd. And the cops came, and they kind of formed a line in back of all the punks, and a couple fights broke out, and I remember Mike saying, "Just start playing, start playing." So we started playing, and we got through our whole show, and then the cops just turned around and left, which was weird, and it was like, oh, Eddie told them to leave or something. No, they just left on their own. But that was the last punk rock show in San Diego, which was too bad. But at least all those people would come up to L.A. to see shows because that was the only place they could go at that point.
Yeah, I guess I heard you put a some kind of curse on the cops by staring at them. They got scared.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I put the hex on them, man. I went down there and I beat up a couple of them, and I went out with their wives. And God, no, I didn't do anything.
So you say.
Yeah, they just left.
What are your memories about the Cuckoo's Nest?
Oh boy, good and bad. We played there, the old Eddie and the Subtitles, and the Cuckoo's Nest was a place where if you made gas money, you were doing good. And then the punk rock thing happened, and we just kind of and a lot of bands just avoided the place like the plague because Jerry Roach had a policy of not paying anybody anything. And so I can't remember. I think it might have been Tony. He put together a Fullerton night at the Cuckoo's Nest, and it was the Subs, the Adolescents, and Social Distortion, and it was just packed. It was really good. And Rodney was on a weekend, and Rodney was saying, "You got to go down to the Cuckoo's Nest tonight because they're having Fullerton night." And it was really great. And we actually got paid then. And then we opened up for Wall of Voodoo down there, and that was a big crowd. And Wall of Voodoo got ripped off, and so their drummer Joe Nannini, he ended up beating up Jerry Roach in the parking lot, just beat the crap out of him. And that was an interesting scene. It was like, well, that's what happens when you rip people off.
Yeah, pretty much. And is it true you threw the first punk festival in some biker town, but you missed it because you went to jail?
Yeah, it was called Cow Slam Zero or something like that, and it was at a biker bar. We had played there, way early when we were a rockabilly band, but we played inside the bar, but they had a real big outside area. And so we had a stage, and we just, invited a million bands to play. But early I think around noon, the cops came and they looked in the back of my van, and there was a pair of cutoffs in the van, and there was like some speed tablets in the cutoffs. So I went to jail, and I got out on my own reconnaissance, and I went home, and there was a bunch of people there, gays and a bunch of people that were there, and I was fine. They dropped the charges, and
yeah. How was the jail?
I wasn't there very long. It was weird because I went there. I never got booked. I never got charged with anything, and then they let me out on my own reconnaissance. But then I had to go to a probation officer, and I went there, and the guy says, "Well, just keep your nose clean." And I thought, God, this is so weird. I wasn't even booked I wasn't charged or booked,
right?
And I had to go see a probation officer. Like that's kind of like weird, isn't it?
Yeah, probation.
I mean, it's yeah. You usually have to get charged and convicted before you see a probation guy, but it was just, I don't know. I think they were just trying to harass the punk rockers, and
right. They wanted to keep a tab on you.
Yeah, they did. They sure did.
How crazy did the crowd go when Mike Ness came out and did American Society at that big fest?
That wasn't there. What happened was this was a great show at the Starwood. I think I mentioned it. The Minutemen played first, then Black Flag, and Des Cardina, the singer, he had laryngitis, so they had to turn down, and they sounded so good. It was just great. And then we played, and before we played American Society, Geza came out and took my guitar, and Diggs Danny came out of the Weirdos and took the bass, and Brendan Mullins was playing the drums, and they started playing this song, and it was so cool because it wasn't the fast version of American Society, and it wasn't the slow version. It was kind of like in between, and so everybody was like going, "What the hell? What is this?" And then Tony came out, and he sang the first verse. Then he goes back behind the curtain, and then this guy comes out with this this hat, and everybody's going, "Who the fuck is that?" And it was Mike Ness, and he sang the second verse, and then both of them came out and sang the last verse, and that was the end of the show.
Oh, okay. That was at the Starwood.
Yeah, at the Starwood. And then when we went out after the show, and somebody threw a bunch of beer bottles at the cops, and there was like 1,000 cop cars outside, and we had to take the back way out, and it was on the 6 o'clock news the next day, and it was weird.
Big riot, huh?
Well, that's what the cops said.
Oh yeah. So after you moved out of LA because punk died, like due to the violence in LA, or?
Yeah, I mean the Starwood closed. The Starwood closed that night. That was it. And then the next show was the Dead Kennedys played at the Long Beach Arena, and that was closed down. And then we were trying to get a show with Black Flag at the Santa Monica Civic, but we had to put up a $10,000 bond, and nobody could do that. So Black Flag went to Europe, and everybody broke up. I mean, the Dead Kennedys broke up. The Adolescents broke up briefly. Just a bunch of bands. The Weirdos broke up. It's kind of like the end of the thing, and so I hung out for a while, but there wasn't any place to play. They just pretty much outlawed punk rock, so I ended up moving back to Reno.
Okay. And why did you bring the Subtitles back?
Well, that's a weird story too. I was making some demos at a studio here in Reno, Dogwater, and the guy there said, I was looking for Eddie and the Subtitles, and it's just not available anywhere. You got to put that stuff back out. So he kind of arranged to put out some CDs of the early stuff, and that came out, and then. The bass player in the Subtitles, her husband is a musician, and he said, you got to put another band together and play your old songs. And I had not really even thought about doing that, so I thought, well, maybe that's a good idea. And I had a band in mind, a really good punk band called the Liver Scars, but then they broke up. And so I ended up getting this guy's wife, Mikey, and her mate Penny. They were in the Shames, and I got those two, and then we got a drummer who eventually moved up to Seattle and was replaced by the drummer we have now. We just started playing shows, and it worked out really good.
Okay, cool. Are you working on any new stuff? Any new songs?
Yes, I have a ton of new songs, and we're going to start learning those songs as we speak in our next rehearsal, and then we're going to make another album.
Oh, very cool. And what do you think of punk rock now?
Well, obviously I like the old stuff better because it just seemed like it was, I don't know, more political than some of the stuff out now, but I like it. I mean, it's one of my favorite kind of music, and I like some of the new bands. I mean, we just played with Pussy Velour, and they kind of sound like the Cramps, kind of. and they're really good. I really like them, and we play with another band called the Glitter Bats, and they kind of sound like Bauhaus, and that's kind of my kind of music. And so, I still like, a lot of the stuff. We just played with a couple old Reno bands called the Zoinks and the Atomics, and they were both really good. There was a band there from Long Beach, and I was talking to the drummer, and he goes, "Hey, you guys just played at Alex's bar in Long Beach." And I said, "Yep." And he goes, "I'm in a band with Alex." And I said, "Really?" And so I asked him, "How was that Eddie and the Subtitles show at your club?" And he said, "They brought in a ton of people and they were fucking great." And I said, "God," he said that. Cool. I guess he likes us.
Yeah, that's cool.
No wonder they want us back.
Yeah. And how often do you guys play out in Southern California?
We've been down there a couple times. It's kind of a weather thing, because we're up here in the snow, and so we have to kind of go and in the summertime. And but we're already planning to go back. We're going to play at Alex's bar again, and maybe play at Sardines in Long Beach, because that's pretty close. And in fact, I asked the lady that books Alex's bar, Jeanette, is it okay if we play like a weekend and play at Sardines? And she goes, "Eddie, you're going to draw a lot of people no matter where you play." I go, "Wow, thank you."
Maybe I'll fly down for that show. Give me
give me a call. Let me know. I'll put you on the guest list. You don't have to pay at the door.
Cool. And what does punk rock mean to you?
I still think it's, provocative and political, and it targets a certain audience. Although there's a lot of people that, in the old days it was pretty much people that looked like punk rockers went to it, but nowadays it's just about anybody that likes that kind of music. So it's I think it's expanded its audience, and it's just a lot of fun. It's always been a lot of fun to me. I mean, that's like the point. If it's not fun, then what are you doing it for?
Right. And did you ever play with the Cramps?
No, we didn't. No, geez, I think they only played in LA like once. They played at the Whiskey. And I wasn't even able to see the show, but they weren't a band that, came through town very often.
Or what about the club?
With the who?
The Gun Club?
Gun Club. Gun Club was a funny band. I saw them at the Club 88, and I thought, well, gee, they're kind of a funny band. They're kind of more like a rock band than a punk rock band. And I was really surprised because they moved to New York, I think, and they were really big in France. And I thought, well, that's nice, because they weren't really big in L.A. They were kind of part of the punk scene, but they weren't really a punk rock band. So the punks kind of went, yeah, whatever. So, but I guess they got really, they got popular on the East Coast and then really popular in France.
And what band do you think you played with that you were actually in awe of?
Oh boy, that's a good question too. Well, I was in awe of X and the Germs, the Weirdos. I mean, those bands were just so good. I mean, they were, I remember the Germs. They were kind of crummy when they first started, and then they were kind of half good and half bad, and then all of a sudden they were just tremendous. And I mean, they drew this huge crowd, and it was a lot of people that weren't even into punk rock would go and see the Germs because they were just so unique, and they were pretty awesome. They had something going on that it was pretty good. And then X, of course, X was just so good right off the bat. It was like, Jesus, this is really they're really good musicians.
And then you said you might be playing Long Beach soon. Is there any tours coming up or any next shows or anything?
No, we're kind of, Mikey just had a baby and she has to work, and her husband is like in 3 bands. And Penny is like she's a scientist. She's got a PhD in science, and so she's got a really good job, and she just bought a house. And the drummer Scott, he works for Slovenly Records and Sticker Guy, and he's a full-time guy. So we really can't do a tour without everybody like quitting their job. In fact, I'm thinking seriously about getting a tour band together and just going on a tour without these guys, but I haven't quite pulled the plug yet.
That would be sick.
Yeah.
And if you could change anything in your life, what would you change anything?
Yeah, I would have stopped drinking and taking drugs a lot earlier. It just I just feel so much better now. I have so much more energy, and I just I've been an alcoholic ever since I was about 8 years old, and I've been taking drugs since I was a teenager, and yeah, I would have stopped because it's just I feel better. I'm healthier now. I just saw my doctor, and she goes, "God, you're really like healthy. Everything looks really good." And,
oh, nice.
So
nice.
that's. I mean, I'm getting too old. I gotta keep going, and I just turned 74, and everybody just goes. Everybody goes, "No, you're not that old." I go, "Yeah, and I have to show them my driver's license." Yeah,
happy birthday.
But I put a lot of energy out there, so it's good.
Yeah, nice. Well, do you have any last words?
Yeah, are you guys a regular magazine, or is this just something that's on?
I put out a print magazine like every 6 months or whenever I get enough bands to do it. But I started doing telephone interviews, and I just pretty much put it on YouTube. So I've interviewed Randy from the Alley Cats and Joe Wood and a lot of your friends from back in the day, whatever.
Back in the day.
Old Dan.
Yeah,
man.
Well,
I try to do it all.
I was going to suggest that if you have a magazine, a regular hard copy, to send me a copy.
Yes. Yeah. I'll call you. I'm recording right now.
Okay.
I'll call you after. I'll call you back and get your address. I don't want to put it up there for everybody.
Yeah, really. Hey, you know where Eddie lives? No.
Sure. But, yeah, well, thank you so much for the interview, Eddie.
Sure. I'm just going to sit here by the phone, and you can call me back.
All right, Eddie. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too.